Well, gang, I have a dilemma. I posted my last project on October 31st, and I promised myself that I would make at least one more video before the end of the year. I had something actually really specific in mind, something that I've been planning for going on a couple years now, which would be thematically very appropriate to coordinate with the year's end. A big story about what the Knitting Machine project taught me about my relationship to time. So it's December 15th today as I write this, and on paper, I think it's still technically possible that I could get it out the door in a little over 2 weeks if I'm super organized and I rigidly adhere to a schedule, and if I don't get sick or injured or distracted, and if I really did have that breakthrough I think I did, where I finally figured out how to mix my audio somewhat efficiently, and if I'm utterly ruthless about killing my creative darlings. In other words, if a lot of factors outside my direct control happen with mechanical precision, and if I magically develop a new personality overnight, maybe I could burn myself out to hit that deadline. I do tend to get this way in December. A sort of year-end madness descends on me, and I start thinking that not only is there still time to tie up all of 2025's loose ends, but I could probably squeeze in some of the things this year was missing. I can still save it. But the reality is that I'm not even close to done writing that script, and I've been struggling to keep the project in scope. Time as a topic touches everything if you let it. As much as I want to honor this weird little commitment I made to myself, I think the art deserves a lot more from me than a frantic rush job. Plus, you know, in my culture, perhaps yours too, these last few weeks of the year are holiday season, and not only does this add a whole extra separate layer of complex domestic project management and deadlines that I'm trying to juggle, half of which actually aren't in my calendar and all of which are going to take twice as long as I estimated, I'd kind of like to carve out time for actually enjoying some of those festive things with my family. I'm not religious, so to me, I think that's kind of the point of holidays and traditions, to dedicate time and intention to something that might otherwise get lost in the flow of everyday life, like a super zoomed out meditation. We engage in these rituals with our loved ones or communities, or maybe just privately, to remind, refocus, reset. Sure, the mind wanders, but we practice gently guiding it back, yearly, seasonally, moment to moment. Sometimes the date itself is a bit arbitrary, technically just another spin of the globe like any other, but that doesn't necessarily make that time fungible. And sometimes the date isn't arbitrary at all. Sometimes it really is the shortest or longest day of the year where you live, and it's good to gather friends around a cheese board and remember that you live in a place in the world. And that place had its own relationship to time long before the dominion of clocks. See? Thematically appropriate. Anyway, that kind of brings me to another issue I've been having, which is that quite a few of the themes I've been focused on lately are feeling kind of heavy. For some goddamn reason, Francis fucking Galton keeps making unexpected cameos in seemingly everything I've read in the past 8 weeks, and I don't know, I just don't really want to spend my holidays steeping my brain in the history of eugenics. I'd kind of like to offer you and myself something warm and sparkly to end the year. Something hopeful. So here we are. May our hearts be light. In no particular order, here are a few of my favorite things from 2025. I read over 30 books this year. A lot of them were even on paper, and the vast majority of them were borrowed from my local public library. There were even more books not listed here that I borrowed and didn't get a chance to read, and a few that I took a shot on and didn't really like, so they didn't make the list. There were also a handful that I decided to purchase. A couple of standouts, Piranesi, weird, wonderful, mysterious, cried like a baby at the end. Lurking was one that I just pulled off the shelf because it caught my eye and it ended up being one of my favorite reads of the year. And I also really liked About Time. It's a rollicking read despite the subject matter. Aside from books, my local library also has DVDs and CDs, which have this year saved me from the temptation to reactivate certain streaming services just for holiday fare. And they also offer everyone up to $5 of free printing credit per month, which has come in really handy in the past for printing out PDF sewing patterns, but this year I mainly used it for printing out journal articles because in my experience most academic page setting is kind of a nightmare to read on a mobile screen. So of course I don't really mean YouTube the app, and certainly not YouTube the company. When I say YouTube, I really mean YouTubers, the people who make the weird and wonderful stuff that brings this place to life. I love all kinds of videos: fitness, crafts, blender tutorials, cooking, nail art. I'm not going to attempt a full accounting of all of the things I loved this year, but I do want to draw attention to a few, and I think I watch and rewatch more video essays than anything else. When it comes to video essays, I especially appreciate the ones where the creators really fully embrace the whole audio-visual part of the equation. Like, don't get me wrong, I can still hang with the minimalist production. It's not all about over-the-top costumes or sets. In fact, one of my favorite videos of the year was Be Your Own Algorithm by Page Me It, which is certainly not visually flashy, but I still found my eyes just glued to the screen the whole time because the little details and the pacing are just very compelling. I've got a fun little subcategory here that I'll call Essays Grounded in Craft. Jade Lang has this like cozy, punny, kind of surreal style of media analysis that she does via themed knitting and crochet projects. She published so much stellar work this year that I actually found it really hard to pinpoint just one, but I think my favorite is probably the scorpion jacket recreation that she did from the movie Drive, but honestly, it's really a close call. Also in this subgenre is Lizard Lee's deep dive into the collapse of Joanne Fabrics. It's a heart-wrenching and infuriating rabbit hole about the so-called category killer businesses that have come to mediate our creative lives, and I think it's essential viewing even if you don't sew or have never set foot in a Joanne store. The issues Lizard addresses are by no means limited to one chain of stores or one niche hobby. The leftist cooks are on a streak of bangers, but Why Do We Hate Children may have slightly reconfigured my brain. Sarah and Neely do an amazing job connecting the dots between a number of seemingly disparate injustices, and I'm not going to try and claim this is like a carefree, cozy, feel-good romp, but at the same time, the ideas in it really left me feeling pretty hopeful. Speaking of being on a hot streak, Lily Alexander's The Psychic Burden of Being Watched is a goddamn masterpiece. Haunting and deep, it is hands down my favorite out of a year of mind-blowing filmmaking. You, all of you out there who are watching this video and any of my other videos that I put out over the last couple of years, so many of you have also signed up to my mailing list and my Patreon. Both those places get the same content. The Patreon stuff is not paywalled. It's just a place where if you feel like throwing a few bucks towards, buying yarn or filament or lights or any of the other things that go into these projects and these videos, that's a place where you have the opportunity to do it, but it is not essential. It really does just mean a lot that I know people are interested in the things that I'm making and the things that I have to say. And if you want to share one of these videos with someone you think would like it, that is just as helpful. I really appreciate you being here. Shout out to Hanging Upside Down. I finally went back to aerial circus classes and I am very out of shape in many of the ways that matter, and my body has basically forgotten everything that it learned over the course of 5 years, but it still feels great. 10 out of 10. So this category is honestly a little bit bittersweet for me because while I did pull off a couple of big milestones and a few fun things behind the scenes, this just didn't really feel like a great year for my creative spirit. I spent a lot of time spinning my wheels on larger projects, but many days my big wins were things like getting the dishes done, spending quality time with my loved ones, and making a good meal. And I don't want to forget to celebrate that stuff matters. That is the stuff that a good life is made of. It's just not algorithm chum. At the same time, I also know that I suffer from a bit of recency bias, and so I also don't want to forget the other projects that I just didn't document as well. Like I also rewrote my teleprompter app in the Web Animations API so that it's a lot more reliable than it was when I originally published a video about it. I also didn't do a lot of sewing this year, but I did pull off 2 big special occasion dresses, one of which I substantially sewed by hand, which is something that I haven't done in a long, long time, so it felt really good to whip out those skills. And I also 3D modeled and printed a bespoke pair of shoe lasts from my own measurements, which has been a really long time goal of mine that I'm so excited I've made progress on this year. It involved really leveling up some blender skills. I just had so much fun with that, and I'm really looking forward to working on that more in 2026. Oh, and don't forget, I open sourced a knitting machine. I also technically shipped a cone winder, but I had some mixed feelings about that, which if you're curious, you can go watch my last video. When I look back at 2025, I do think I approached my projects with curiosity and dedication and an openness to creative experimentation that I'm really happy with. But in hindsight, there also wasn't a lot of playfulness. Lots of reasons for that. Again, see my last video, some of which are outside my direct sphere of influence, but I do think I got a little bit bogged down in like trying to approach project management like a responsible adult, to the exclusion of some smaller, looser, more spontaneous side quests. In 2026, I do still hope to pull off a couple of like long-term big concepts that I'm really invested in executing to the highest level that my skills and resources will allow, but I also really want to make space for just like throwing some fun, low-stakes stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, you know? So you might see some shorter, less scripted, and maybe more experimental stuff, and I'm hoping that'll also mean you hear from me a little bit more often, and maybe a little bit more joyfully. So let's have some fucking fun in 2026. And until then, stay safe, stay warm, and stay curious.